and moves were made. Hands were shook, money exchanged hands, possibly drugs. But it was all good. It was all in the name of fantasy football.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Dynasty. Like I said, we all see things differently.
Put it on his shirt! I
Yes,
just
they do.
drank what tasted like a root beer, but now I'm feeling kind of tipsy.
Ride that unicorn, my friend.
I was really going to do an awful Mexican accent, but I realized how mad I'd be at someone else for doing that. So, hi.
We all are very intrigued and very interested in what will happen this year.
(9:48 in the p.m.) Wednesday, December 20th. I am Peter Livingston, host of the Dynasty podcast. It is a seasonal fantasy football podcast in which 12 friends enter. One leaves champion, and that champion will be crowned this weekend. Deal with it. So crazy. Oh my God, it's Christmas weekend. Hey, by the way, happy holidays. I haven't a lot of crap going on, but happy holidays to all of you out there, whether you are celebrating Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or Christmas, or the pagan solstice. I know that. I don't know what the atheist thing which is that. That's not pagan. They would do anything, but they'd fucking do something anyway. Whatever it is, it's do it and have fun doing it. All of you, everybody in this league. Happy season to all of you. Right? Let's keep the fantasy in football. Right? Don't take the fantasy out of football. That's because that's all we're doing is living in a fantasy world. Like I said, the championship. We're talking championship now. We talked about week 15. That's fucking old news. We're talking playoff championship football right now, baby. Playoff football championships. Somebody's going to get a ring. Is it going to be Matt Keiser? Hey, forget about it. Is it going to be Robin? Brown Ward? The Fought Apocalypse? Forget about it. We got a matchup. That's for damn sure. And it should be a fun one. We only have the one team to break down. And, not the one team, the one matchup to break down. And that's about it. We're not going to get too much into other stuff. It's the focus, championship focus. And just for shits and giggles, maybe we'll look at the third and fourth place game, the third place game, which is for money. Money, we'll get back. We'll talk a little bit about some leagues goings-ons. We'll talk about waiver wire. Talk about all types of things. First, let's dive into waiver wire. We'll look at some of the pickups that were made. We don't have any grades, so I apologize for that. The grades have fallen off in the past few weeks. It is to be expected. So December 20th, today. This morning, 12:29. That's when the shit goes down. All right, we're talking waivers. Oh God, I can't remember. It's either 4.5 or 5.5. I want to say 4.5. I don't know. Anyway, let's go through waivers. It looks like we are way over on that. We have like upwards of we're hitting double digits. Almost. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 waiver claims. That is impressive. So the first waiver claim that we're going to have is Tion Green, who was picked up by Tahir. Little bit of controversy only because he still is in the playoffs. He still is playing for money. But Elliot wanted to know, hey, guys, are you cool with this as a league? Him and Joe both made moves. Joe picked up Martavis Bryant and dropped Brandon Cooks. And, I mean, technically, you'd probably say no. But as a league, we were kind of like, well, were there any competing waiver bids or anything? It doesn't seem like there were. Let me look at the waiver bids. We had... sorry about this. Let me look up. No, we had no competing waiver bids. We had one for Greg Olson between Robin and Keyser. We had couple competing waiver bids for Sterling Shepard between Robin and the Teabaggers and Braggadocious 1-on-1, right? But that didn't happen. There was one between the Teabaggers and Joe, but they're both in the playoffs, so that doesn't really matter. That one would be okay, I guess. I don't know. And then we had a lot for Keelan Cole, who I picked up, my dog. The Teabaggers, Braggadocious 1-1, and Fart Apocalypse all went after him. And then, but yeah, anyway, point is, it doesn't seem like there were many conflicting waiver transactions or waiver bids for these players that were picked up by the playoff teams. So I don't think it's that big a deal. You know, Tion Green is a guy that he'll probably end up getting cut, but it's cool because it's part of like freaking 3 running back by committee thing, and I don't know. Calvin Benjamin dropped. Tion Green picked up by Detroit. Sure. Greg Olson picked up at Braggadocious 1-on-1. Had a big week last week after nothing really the past 3, and had a very good matchup against Green Bay. Has a good matchup this week against Tampa Bay. So Braggadocious. But I think that might be more defensive. I don't know if he'll be starting him. I highly doubt he'll be starting him. Fart Apocalypse gets Sterling Shepard back, who has been laying tons of goose eggs and then broke out for 19.9 points. He will be facing Arizona. May not be facing Pat Pete, though, so could be possibly started. Martavis Bryant was picked up by Nimbly Bimbly. Brandon Cooks sent to the waiver wire. Martavis Bryant, another guy that I dropped. I'm not too big on him. He'll have his big games every once in a while, but I think that he'll be more than serviceable this week, especially against Houston. If Joe's looking to find a spot start, especially with Antonio Brown out, could help him win 3rd place and get his monies back. I got Keelan Cole, Jacksonville wide receiver. I am really hoping that the old guard, you could say, Keenan Allen and those guys, don't come back next year and they keep with these young, speedy guys. I like what's happening in Jacksonville. Demir Bird, Carolina wide receiver. I think he had 2 touchdowns last week. J.J. Nelson dropped by Scott, Alcoholics Unanimous. Let's see, touchdowns. Yeah, he had 2 touchdowns last week. Possibly a good emerging target. I don't know. Stab in the dark. We'll see if he even is on the team next year. I think a lot of these guys will end up getting dropped next year anyway. Jermaine Kearse dropped by Nate Silver Sith, and Joe Williams is picked up. Joe Williams, of course, the hope is that he would end up being the heir apparent to Carlos Hyde in the San Francisco 49ers backfield. So that's where Elliott's going with there. He's on injured reserve. George Kittle, San Francisco tight end, picked up by the Teabaggers, and he drops Jerick McKinnon. Which is interesting because, it's just interesting. Eric Ebron, Detroit tight end picked up by Robin. Fart Apocalypse. Ebron looked really good. Past 2 weeks, he had 9 points, 5 receptions, 33 yards and a touchdown. And the week before against Tampa Bay, who aren't very good against tight ends, 10 receptions on 11 targets for 94 yards. So Eric Ebron doing that thing again where he starts to look good, and then we get excited about him, and then we'll see what happens. Does have Cincinnati this week. Could be a very, very, very good matchup. Emmanuel Sanders picked up by Nimbly Bimbly. Hey, you can't. Hey, look at that. Matt Bryant to the waiver wire. Emmanuel Sanders back. That was Joe that had him before. Let's look at play history. Yeah. You can't quit the good stuff, man. Can't quit the good stuff. And then Kendrick Bourne. Is Joe, does he have a kicker or no? I don't know. Maybe Joe's not playing for third place. Maybe he's not trying to get his money back. I don't know. We'll check it out in a minute, though. Trey Burton, Philadelphia tight end, who filled in admirably for Zach Ertz. Picked up by Nimbly Bimbly, drops in Minnesota defense. D'Angelo Henderson, the Denver running back, picked up by Upside Down and Goal. Josh Reynolds, the LA Rams wide receiver, picked up by Upside Down and Goal. These past two were free agents. Blake Bortles, my boy, picked up by me. I dropped Deshaun Kaiser. That didn't last very long. And then I also dropped Orleans Darkwa. 2 waivers. Because, I don't know, feel like there's billions of Orleans Darkwas out there in the world. He had a couple good games, but I'm not liking the trend of the Giants in general. It's looking like there could be some dark days ahead of us. So that was all of the action that we had in terms of transactions. And the only thing was, the pickup of Tion Green and Martavis Bryant by Joe and Tahir. But pretty sure that Elliott, no harm, no foul type of deal. I think going forward, though, that Elliott's talking about doing something. Elliott, if you hear this, again, more reason for you to come on and address the league. This is a platform in which you can vocalize your thoughts and opinions. Anybody can vocalize their thoughts and opinions. As a matter of fact, it is welcome. Very much so. And I encourage you to do so. But let's go ahead and move on. Don't think I'll go through news and notes. Don't know if I have the energy. But I think I do have the energy for some football matchups. Starting with the third place game, Nimbly Bimbly versus the Teabaggers. Looks like Joe's gonna lose. It's 109-80 in favor of Tahir. Unless Joe goes and gets a defense and a kicker. We will have to see what happens. But right now, looks like Tahir. Won't break this one down, but looks like Tahir should win this one handily. Unless, his team takes a dump and then Joe's team does really good or something. Going on to the championship game. Braggadocious 1-1, 11-3 against Fart Apocalypse. Robin 11-3. These two gentlemen do not like one another. And we can see it in their aggressive play. Possibly. I don't know. Interesting note, both of these teams had multiple first-round draft peaks. Believe Matt and Robin both. Did they both have 3? Or did Matt have 2 and Robin had 3? Let's check it out. Point being, the two teams that went aggressive into the first round are in the championship. Coincidence? I think not. Yeah, both teams had 3 first-round draft picks. Oh, no, Robin just had 2. Just kidding. Yeah, Keyser had the number 1 overall pick, the number 4 overall pick, and the number 11 pick. No, he had 4. I am miscounting. That's what it is. He had 4 first-round draft picks. The number 1, the number 4, the number 8, and the number 11. So it pays to have multiple firsts. Scott, don't mess this up, homie. Next year, you got 3. You should be in the championship next year. We'll see what happens. So let's go ahead and break this one down. 132 to 112 is the projected total. Matt Keyser is the heavy favorite over Robin at this point in time. Let's break down his quarterback and his big 5. Drew Brees is his quarterback at home against Atlanta. Keenan Allen on the road, New York Jets. Dez Bryant at home against Seattle. A.J. Green at home against Detroit. Le'Veon Bell on the road at Houston. Melvin Gordon on the road in New Jersey, the home of the Jets. Robin, his quarterback, Tom Brady, at home against Buffalo. Julio Jones on the road, New Orleans. Golden Tate on the road, Cincinnati. Sterling Shepard on the road, Arizona. Running backs LaShawn McCoy on the road, New England. And Kareem Hunt at home in Miami. You will notice that there was a lot of road games for Robin. A little bit of an uphill battle with that. Tight ends, Rob Gronkowski at home against Buffalo, going for Matt Keyser. Eric Ebron at Cincinnati, going for Robin. The flex is Mark Ingram at home against Atlanta for Matt Keyser. Jay Ajayi at home against Oakland. And then special teams for Keyser. Goskowski against Buffalo. Baltimore against Indy. Both are at home. Boswell on the road in Houston. And the Chargers defense on the road against the New York Jets. These may or may not be the final rosters going forward. Looking at the bench for Robin, Hunter Henry has the messed up kidneys. He's done for the year. Adams, concussion protocol, probably not going to play. Out. Then he is Bourne, Barber, and Demaryius Thomas in as well. Probably you could look... probably not going to make any changes at running back. If you were probably going to do one thing, you'd probably juggle between Demaryius Thomas or Sterling Shepard, maybe, or Golden Tate. I mean, point is, Demaryius Thomas is probably the fringe guy. Obviously, since he's on the bench, but he's probably the one that Robin would be looking at to possibly come in and start. Over either Tate or Shepard. Keyser on his bench. He does have Jimmy Graham, but it's really hard for him to find a spot to overtake his running backs, Le'Veon Bell, Melvin Gordon, and Mark Ingram in the flex. Probably, if he were to look for points, you could maybe make the argument of Matt Ryan over Drew Brees, depending on how you think game flow goes. But it's Brees at home. That's a tough one. I think that's really the only play that Matt Keyser could be looking at is, does he go with Drew Brees or does he go with Matt Ryan? It is a divisional game. It does have playoff implications. So I don't think anybody's going to be rolling over and dying. The last time these two met, it was a really, really, really weird game. One of those games that Atlanta had no business winning. New Orleans dominated, and just by weird crap happening, ended up losing the game. So is this a revenge game? Who knows? But it should be a good one. Both should be very much involved. So now let's break down these matchups. Like I said, with Drew Brees at home, projected for 20 points, and I think that's probably that's probably right in his wheelhouse. I've said it a lot this year. This isn't the typical Drew Brees year. They haven't asked him to throw the ball, 40 plus 50 times a game like they have in years past. The numbers aren't there. A little bit more of a game manager than we're used to seeing. The run, obviously, so prevalent. They kind of pick and choose where they want to throw, really only when they have to. So that's something you always have to, but it's safe. In a way, it's very safe. It's not very sexy, but that potential is always there if they need it. And I think Matt Ryan's very much the same way. You kind of look at Matt Ryan, it's like, do you really think that he's gonna, explode for 28, 30 points? Who knows? They're kind of in the same boat. They're getting like 17, 18 points a week. Everyone, Matt Ryan hasn't cracked 20 points, but Drew Brees has only really done it a couple of times this year. Week 2, week 3, he got 20.8. Week 7, and then week 11. So only 4 times Drew Brees has cracked 20 points this year. Matt Ryan has gotten close. He's gotten 19 points a number of times, but the point being, you're splitting hairs. You're going with probably the better offense, and it's at home with Brees, but it's really, really close. Keenan Allen looks like he's going to be fine, but it is against the Jets. I think this is it's a fine matchup. It is on the road, but it's a fine matchup. The wide receiver position really let Keyser down last week. Des Bryant at home against Seattle, projected for 9. And, you look at the yardage. I've been saying it all year. He's, in that 60 to 80 range. And he did have 98 yards in week 4 against the Rams. But you are really hoping for a touchdown. And I'd like to think last week he had 4 targets last week. 4 targets, 2 receptions, 60 yards. Like, he's a guy. I didn't get to really watch that game, so I don't know what happened, but you just see some of these numbers and you're like, why aren't you relying more heavily on Dez? Like, no, he doesn't really get the separation, but he's a huge, big-bodied receiver. That should be heavily relied on, and sometimes he is, but most of the time, in the past few weeks, not so much. But Des Bryant coming back, maybe Keyser's looking at this and saying, I like this offense a lot more. We just watched Seattle roll over and die. We're still competing in the NFC East, or the Cowboys are still competing in the NFC East. Des Bryant could be set up for a good game. It will definitely depend on Zeke, though. And then A.J. Green, at home against Detroit. It's a good year, I guess. He's going to be around 1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns, but this isn't really what you sign up for when you get A.J. Green. You're really hoping for those monster games, and he's gotten a couple, but it's been kind of an underwhelming season. The wheels have really fallen off the Bengals. Just their season entirely after the bye week. So A.J. Green, 3 points last week against Minnesota. It was tough anyway. Chicago, only 4 points there. You're really hoping for the bounce back. But Keyser, really what he's looking at, and you look at the projections, A.J. Green, 9 and 9 for Dez. He's obviously banking on the running back play. Le'Veon Bell on the road at Houston, hasn't been the best defense. They're okay against the run, but the versatility of Le'Veon Bell makes him a tough matchup regardless. Melvin Gordon projected for 14 and 3/4 points against the Jets. Seems like he should get that. Looking at his past games, Melvin Gordon, 22, essentially 23, 14, and 10. He did have 8 points against Dallas, but the week before that he had 14. So he's hitting those double-digit points and has a couple of really good stretches here. And, you look at the Jets, and we think of the Jets as a horrible defense from years past. But they're improved. They're definitely improved. They're not amazing. They're 21st in the league against a run. About 115 yards a game they yield. So there's some potential there, and he's pretty much the only running back. Not literally, but for the most part. So the work should be there. And then Gronk at Buffalo. Gronk always does well against Buffalo. The only worry, of course, being, what happens with New England. Of course, they're not in the clear in terms of the playoff situation. There are still 2 weeks left, and they're only a game ahead of the Steelers. So it's not like they can just kind of trounce into the playoffs with the 1 seed. They do got to put it away, and there's a good opportunity for Gronk to have a good game. Buffalo is, with tight ends anyway, hasn't been very impressive. They've been pretty darn good with wide receivers, but not so much with tight ends. And then Mark Ingram just continues to just be freaking amazing, reliable as all hell. Projected for 15 points, and that's probably a good safe bet. Gostkowski, New England kicker, projected for 10. Maybe. It could be about there. And then Baltimore against Indianapolis, projected for 10. That's probably good too. I don't see Indy exactly throttling them. So pretty solid all around for Keizer. Little paper thin at wide receiver, but everywhere else Keizer's looking really, really strong. Robin's team, Tom Brady, quarterback against Buffalo. The big question, like I was saying, is what kind of game is this going to be? Is this going to be like one of those statement games where they just jump out, put on 28 points by the third quarter, and then they're sitting, and Brady ends the day with a couple, 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, whatever it is? Or is it just be one of those games where they, what he's been doing, managing long sustained drives, ending with a touchdown, and maybe he'll get you like 200 yards and a touchdown. We don't know, but it's a great matchup against Buffalo. He's projected for 21.5, and it's pretty clear that Robin is saying, I'm gonna ride Tom Brady this week. There's nobody else at quarterback that he would really want to plug in there because he doesn't have anybody on his bench. So he's pretty much gone with Tom Brady. And he's just hoping that he bounces back. Julio Jones at New Orleans. It's probably going to be a typical Julio game. He'll probably, at worst, end up with like 80, 90 yards. And you're hoping that he gets his 4th or more touchdown on the season. They are just really missing Shanahan out there. And you can't say, like, Julio Jones isn't having a bad year. Just there's no touchdowns. He's at 1,200 yards. It's, up there in the league. It's tops in the league. There's just no touchdowns. Just no touchdowns. Golden Tate against Cincinnati. The thing with Golden Tate, and I get why it's only like a 3-star matchup, and Cincinnati has been good against the pass, but the thing is, like, they're banged up. Their secondary's banged up, and their defense in general is just banged up. And as much as I think that Detroit wants to run the ball, and I think they will to a degree, I also think that Golden Tate could definitely have one of those 14 or 15-point games that he can throw up, and I think he can probably do it pretty easily. I don't know who's going to be covering him, but Golden Tate's just absolutely nasty. One of the hardest to cover after catch, period. And it's a good matchup. I get why it's 3 stars because, this Detroit offense is so versatile, so many different weapons. You look at Ebron. Robin's really hedging this matchup. A tight end. Ebron is only projected for 5. I don't think that they've quite done their adjustments yet. Maybe they have, but I think that's really low. I think that's probably up more around double digits. So, you slap another 6 on the Robin's projected total, probably around 18, 19. But, Tate is definitely capable. You look at the wide receivers on both teams, they're underperforming, right? Keenan Allen's been pretty darn good. Slow down a little bit, but he's been pretty darn good. Des Bryant he's been like wide receiver 2. We want him to be high-end wide receiver 1. He's not really that guy anymore. So he's kind of doing his thing, just kind of underperforming a little bit. AJ Green's grossly been underperforming, and there's part of you, is there something wrong with them? Is he hurt? Who knows? It's really interesting. And looking over with Robin's team, it's pretty similar. I think if I had to say, I would say that Robin's wide receivers probably have a higher ceiling. I'm not a huge fan of the Sterling Shepard matchup. I think the hope would be that you're hoping that by volume, like he just gets peppered with targets and has a big game. Because he was able to have a breakout game last week. He looked left for dead the 5 weeks prior. But he had 19 points against Philly on 16 targets. So you're really hoping that he gets that kind of workload again. The benefit is, he's not going to get... I don't think they're going to bring Pat Pete down to him in the slot. So I think he has good potential too. Again, it's a road game, and just everything that's happening with New York, you don't know what you're going to get. So I'm not thrilled with the matchup, but I think Robin's wide receivers have the higher upside, and he also has the horses at running back to compete with Matt Keiser, with Shady at New England. I think just by volume he'll get there. He's at 12 3/4 points. I kind of feel like that's probably his floor, and he might eclipse that, get around 15 points maybe, and then Kareem Hunt. 13 points. I definitely think he could hit that too. It is against Miami. The potential's there. Le'Veon Bell, of course, is a little bit above and beyond everybody else. He's definitely the elite back. But when you look at, Shady McCoy and Kareem Hunt, and then, Melvin Gordon, so yeah, he could match that. He could match that, definitely. I think that's very possible. Eric Ebron, we touched on that. Great matchup, great potential. He's been getting a lot of looks lately. So I imagine that Detroit's going to be in the red zone quite a bit, and that Ebron could definitely benefit from it. So the other one is J.H.I. in that it's a great matchup against Oakland. It all depends on what's going to happen with the game flow. He's been getting some good work. He had 15 touches or 15 carries, and then 12 carries, 78 yards, and then 49 yards. So yardage not that bad. They've been throwing a lot in the red zone, but you just gotta. We know that the potential is there with Ajayi, and I think that if he's getting in the high teens, there's a good chance that he could crack 100 yards, and then after that, you're just hoping that he finds a way to sneak into the end zone. And of course, the other guys are also very prevalent there as well, and that'll eat into a little bit of that. But you do have to like what the potential is with Robin's running backs there. And then not much to say in terms of the kicker defense. It's kind of a wash. not as much upside with the Baltimore and the Chargers matchup because, I think in terms of scoring, we've seen it more from Baltimore. They have 5 touchdowns on the year, so very active defense. The Chargers have 3. They're fairly similar, and I think where Baltimore has the potential for a bigger game, I think that the consistency will definitely be there with the Chargers defense, mainly because of their ability to go and get after the quarterback. And I think that is it. Looking at that, it is that's a championship week in a nutshell. We already went over the benches. There really isn't a lot of adjustments that can happen with Matt Ryan at the quarterback spot for Keizer and Demaryius Thomas for Robin. There isn't much else to get in there. Robin, like I said, he's got a hope for a couple of big games. And same with Keizer. I mean, the elite players for both these guys are in some interesting predicaments because it is that time of the year, late in the season. A couple of these teams, they have clinched playoff spots, and so you wonder how they're going to utilize their talent. But both these guys, you're not going to start people. You have to start people. But you just have to wonder how will that, trying to save guys for the playoff, eat into any of these lineups. AJ Green, with AJ Green, they're not in the playoffs, but you're like, are they just going to shut it down? Are they just going to be it's a wash of a season and don't want to get AJ Green hurt? We got to keep him for the future. Who knows? What happens with New England? We talked about same thing with the Steelers. Kansas City against Miami. Kansas City if they jump out early. I mean, do they try and save Kareem Hunt? I mean, all of those, you can look at almost every single one of these the players and have that scenario because so many of them are competing for playoff spots or have playoff spots. But the fact of the matter is you have to start the best players. And if that happens, it's out of your power. It's out of your control. You're not unless a coach is like, we're only going to, play a guy for a quarter and a half. There's no reason why you wouldn't start anybody. But it's just something that, could affect the matchup in some way, shape, or form. We saw that last season with Brienne, the Cowboys going into the playoffs, and she was facing Tim and Zeke was having a monster game, monster half, and at the rate he was going, I think he already had 20 points, and it looked like if he were to keep going at the rate he was, Brienne had an honest to goodness chance of beating Tim. But then, he played another series or two in the third quarter, and they shut him down. And, that was that. But like I said, you can't manage that way unless it's explicitly stated by the coach of a team. But it's just something to keep to keep in mind. So that's it. I don't think that there's anything else really to touch on. Heck of a season, everybody. After this is done, we will do our recap, and then we'll talk about this past season. I talked about some things that I'd like to see us try and do for next year, and bring this up again. And hopefully I can get some other people on. I think that'd be a lot of fun. So thank you guys so much for listening. Follow me at Peter Livingston for Twitter. And then ffdynastypod at gmail.com. Shoot us an email. Thank you guys so much. And good luck to everybody in your championship rounds. All right, have a good one. Robin Keyser. Good luck, gentlemen.